There's a mountain of health advice, and it's available at our fingertips. You scroll by it all the time, and it might be on social media, or it could be in the news, or maybe it's even somebody you know. It seems like everybody's got a hack or a secret or a quick fix or a surefire way that, this is how you're going to lose weight, or this is how you're going to get better sleep, or this is how you're going to get in shape. But the truth is, sometimes those don't pan out. And the only way to really know if a health tip is effective is to put it to test in your own life. And hopefully, other guys have used it, and maybe it's worked for them, so it could work for you. On today's episode, we're going to share our personal experiences with some health tips we've encountered. We're going to talk about the ones that made the difference, that worked, and we're going to talk about those that, maybe didn't quite work. Welcome to Who Cares About Men's Health, where we aim to give you information, inspiration, and a different interpretation of your health. I bring the BS. My name is Scott, the MD to my BS, Dr. John Smith.
Good afternoon.
And our health convert producer, Mitch, is on the show, as always.
Hello.
All right. So each one of us is going to throw out a tip that we've heard or encountered that we used that worked. And each one is going to throw out a tip that didn't work. And the hope is maybe somebody else will discover something that might work for them. Or as I said in the intro, sometimes it doesn't. I think one of the things we've learned on Who Cares About Men's Health is this is all very kind of personalized. It has to be something that works for you and in your life. And we're also very different that, what works for Mitch might not work for me, but it could with a little tweak. That's what we're going to talk about. So tips that worked. Let's start out with the positive. Mitch, do you want to share your tip that worked? That you're so excited to have everybody know about?
Oh, I am, but it feels so dumb to say aloud. So my tip, and it is the one that I have found in the past year in particular has been the most impactful in all aspects of my life, is to put it on a calendar. And
it sounds dumb.
I know. Okay. So, but the thing is that it was actually on a podcast that I was listening to, specializing for ADHD folks. And they said, hey, a lot of times people who have difficulty sticking to a schedule, et cetera, we kind of, or, you always are writing notes down or something. You can't quite figure out where to put it. Well, if you put it on a calendar, there's a higher chance that you're going to use it than if you don't put it on a calendar. And so what's so weird about this is that I now have shared calendars with groups of friends, with my partner, with a bunch of different people, my parents, etc. And I have found that social obligations, at the very least, things that people I'd like to build connections with, people that I would love to spend more time with. And rather than that constant, we should do this again sometime. Hey, are you free? Hey, are you free? Hey, are you free? Instead of doing all of that, you just put it on a calendar and it happens. It happens. And it's the same thing when it comes to my workouts. When it comes to, setting time aside for thinking or wanting to make sure that I spend time to do something. Now, does that mean I have to do every little thing of my day every single day? No, that does not work for me. But I do know when I hop on the calendar, there are sometimes other people that are also following it, that are holding me accountable. Or it's, just a reminder that there is something that at some point in the past I really did want to do.
John, do you put it on a calendar?
A lot of stuff I do. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that I don't want to be on a calendar gets put on a calendar for me. And so it makes my life a lot easier. My wife is very calendar oriented. We have a calendar that I have access to that I can go on and look at what we have going on for kid events that she and I are attending, different things like that. And it's huge, man. It's a game changer because then you know exactly what you've got to prepare for. And I think kind of helps me mentally to be like, all right, I got to go to this thing.
Yeah. Hey, Mitch, question for you. What aspect of your health does putting on a calendar help? So you talked about the emotional because, you're hooking up with friends more often, maybe making sure your workouts on your calendars, just make it more real. Is that why putting it on a calendar works for you? Or
100%.
Because you're like the Mitch of the night before and the Mitch of the next day never quite agree on the Mitch the night before is like, yeah, working out at 10 a.m. tomorrow sounds great. And if you don't put it on a calendar, then the Mitch of the next day is not on board with that plan.
I know past Mitch is a jerk, and I don't care for future Mitch. So it's like but for real, it's everything from I started when I was having trouble sleeping. Right, I started to put bedtimes in my calendar, and that feels like such a duh thing. But for me, it was like, oh, I'll just go to bed whenever. Well, now that it's on a calendar, I like have to stop for a half a second when my little phone buzzes to let me know, hey, you told yourself yesterday that you're going to sleep at this time. I have to like actually process through that and think through that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should. Where before then, I don't know. I was just kind of like willy-nilly and free flowing and a free spirit. But like that meant nothing really got done. And that meant like all of my goals never really got accomplished. So
I am on board with that. I think a calendar is a great tool to use when you're trying to develop a habit. Like before you've developed the habit, because how many times do you set out to do something, like you said, go to bed at a certain time, and then by the time it's bedtime, you've kind of forgotten about that, and it's not until it's 2 hours later or the next day you're like, oh, that's right, I was going to try to go to bed at 10. Well, I'll try again tonight, And if it's not on a calendar, you don't really start developing that habit. So I think that's good. All right, I use a calendar a lot, guys. To schedule my stuff, and I find that it helps me also with my mental health because then I don't have to worry about what's next. There's a little bit of mental energy that's spent on that process of, all right, I just finished up one project. What's my next one? So a lot of times I'll take my to-do list and I will translate that onto the calendar and block out the actual time to get it done. Otherwise, it does not get done.
That's too much.
Yeah.
No, not interested.
Oh, okay. I'm taking it too far. Okay.
I think you're taking it too far. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the thing. You got to find out what works for you. But all right. John, what's a tip that worked for you?
So mine was kind of in that same vein, and it's kind of what got me to kind of it gets me doing things, and that's having an accountability partner. I started working out with a friend of mine probably a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half now. And that accountability partner gets me out of bed because I know that he's waiting for me. And so if I don't show up at the gym, like it's kind of a jerk move, right?
Oh yeah.
Because he's there and he's waiting and he's like, hey, we have a workout. And so, we work out together. And so to me, that's been the biggest hack for me was just if I feel that responsibility, because I feel a responsibility to him as a friend that we have both decided we were going to do this. And it works in a lot of ways I've done it in a lot of other things with work and with personal stuff. Like my wife and I will be accountable to each other on certain things. If we're trying to change a certain habit or we're trying to stop eating after a certain time or things like that really will benefit my health. I have an accountability partner that will be like, hey, dude, I don't know why you're scooping that bowl of ice cream. It's 8:47. Garbage.
Is there a past ice cream time in your house? That's too bad.
No. Well, I mean, I've tried to stop eating after about 8:30.
Got it.
Like on a regular basis, just to keep my calorie count down. Because if I don't, I will. I'll just roll in. I'll be like, oh, we got Rocky Road. Oh, that's great. Cookie dough too. Great, man. Give me a couple scoops of those and just roll on, right? And so those are things where having an accountability partner, someone to keep you honest on that.
You know what? The accountability partner also, it's a jerk move, but also for me, there's a certain amount of my own pride, and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, I keep my word to people. So if I broke that, I would feel badly. And sometimes we're talking about, when it comes to exercising or any habits, we're just talking about a little bit of extra energy is needed to make that happen. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little. How can you just have a little bit more? So I like that. That's good.
Yeah. And for me, like there's mornings where my alarm would go off and I wouldn't have gotten out of bed if I didn't have an accountability partner. If I knew he wasn't going to be at the gym waiting for me, then I would have just stayed in bed. And I mean, just times when I'm just extra tired or whatever, but I know like that alarm goes off. I go, man, he's there. Like he's there. And we've both had episodes where like I forgot or he's forgot, or we had something where we forgot to tell the other person we weren't going to be there. But like those are moments where I don't feel bad because I'm like, oh, dude, I forgot to tell you that I had to go in early for a work meeting or whatever. He's like, oh, no big deal. But like, overall, that's not a normal thing that happens. We both are there. We're accountable to each other and we're making this thing, go better for both of us. And we can push each other in the gym too.
Right. Sometimes you need that little extra activation energy there too.
Or you see him lifting a little bit more than you and you're like, all right, let's go.
That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
Right, exactly. Not today.
No. All right.
That's interesting because one of the biggest struggles I think I have in building habits and actually getting through with some of those is that, like, I don't know, I am someone who can't really hold myself too accountable. I don't know. It's too easy to slip into old, paradigms, old dynamics. It's really easy to get back into old bad habits. And yeah, I found that the couple of things that I do with other people have been helpful. I probably should do some of that more, though.
Yeah. Can take many forms, actually having to do it with the other person, or just actually having to check in with the other person, or having the other person just have an agreement that I'm going to call you out when you're having ice cream at 8:47, because ice cream stops at 8:45 in this house, John. You know that.
Exactly.
What are you doing? All right. Tip that worked for me, and I'm sorry, I always overthink things, so here we go. And I think this is a good contrast, John, between yours, because mine has to do also with strength training, going to the gym and doing some strength training. And I've had accountability partners in the past, and they have absolutely 100% worked for me. However, it would not work for me right now because I don't have somebody in my life that could serve that role. So I have to find another course of action. And for, I think, any of these challenges, there's a lot of different pathways. And this just really illustrates the point of this episode. Sometimes things will work for us in our lives, sometimes they won't. That's why you have to experiment. So what has worked for me, and this is pulling from some past shows, it's a 3-step plan to get me into the gym. And I wish I could say these steps were funny and short and cute, but they're not. 1, know your why. Why am I strength training? Why does this matter to me? For a long time, it was about physical appearance, looking bigger, looking stronger, feeling more masculine. That's not the case anymore. For me now, it's about, I know that strength training is a healthy thing to do. It invests in my future health, invests in my future mobility. So I know why. Then you got to know, how are you going to make this happen? And this was from a book that I read, and I've been habit stacking. If anything from what I'm saying here is probably the takeaway, it's the habit stacking part. And what a habit stack is simply taking a new habit you want and putting it up against something else that you already have a habit of or you have to do. So on my way home from work, I drive right by the gym. So my habit stack is, on my drive home, I stop at the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Not negotiable. And that has changed everything. I don't have to think about leaving the house. Again, just a little bit less activation energy needed. I have my gym bag in my car. I just leave it there. Perfect. And then you have to make it sustainable. And to me, this ties back into the know your why. I used to go to the gym. I wanted to get big and muscular. That requires a lot more effort than is required if I just want to use strength training for its health benefits. And to me, the sustainability is above and beyond everything else, the most important. So what does that mean? That means if I drive by and I'm like, God, I really don't want to do this. I can't drive home. I've made this promise. I've habit stacked. I'm going to go to the gym. But if I do one set of exercises and I'm like, forget this, then I'm cool. I'm cool with that. If that's going to help my sustainability, that's fine. If not working out so hard one day is what it's going to take, then that's fine. If I only have 10 minutes, if that's all I can give and I don't have the whole half hour I need, that's fine. You're going to go do the 10 minutes. So that's what's worked for me. And I don't know if it'll work for you. Maybe there's something in that whole stack. Did that make any sense?
I love that.
I do like that.
I love that. Yeah. All right. I mean, that's something I was just thinking, man, that is a clutch move, I should say.
Oh, for sure. Because I think the bit of advice that I got, or one of the tips that I was contemplating talking about is, it is better to do the thing that I really picked up with that Scott just said was, it is better to do something half-assed consistently than to do it full-assed inconsistently.
Yes.
And so for me, like, even hearing that you're like, okay, my habit is not that I have to go and work out for an hour. My habit is I stop at the gym and I work out. Because if that's 10 minutes, great. If that's what I have, that makes it easier to build into an actual habit because it's something you're already doing. And you're not putting yourself under this like Herculean, Sisyphean, pressure to achieve something that you can't do every single day yet.
No, I was just going to say, I have another thing that I have tried to do, and this is kind of a hack, I guess you could say, but I have a rule that I've been better at it sometimes than others, and it's if it takes less than 5 minutes, you do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you don't, it's non-negotiable, just like your habit stacking, right? Is if this is going to take me less than 5 minutes, I just do it right now because then it's checked off my list and I don't have to go back to it. And so to me, when you were saying that, I was like, man, that's very similar to like if the habit stacking is similar to if it takes less than 5 minutes, you just do it. It's this habit stack. Like it's on your way home. Just go to the gym, idiot.
Right. there was an Instagram post that I saw that really resonated with me as my last thought on this. And that is, this guy was talking about, again, exercise. And he's like, only ask yourself to give what you can give that day. And there's a lot of different variables that might come into play as to what you're able to give in a particular day. And he was talking about physical fitness, and he says, my ideal is I go to the gym, I lift for an hour, I do a half-hour sauna, I get a half-hour swim in, and he, mentions a bunch of other stuff. But he goes, I can't always do my ideal. Maybe I have 10 minutes, I knock out 100 push-ups and call it a day and move on with it, right? It's like, what can I give today? And I'm just like, wow, that's just so cool. And just such a great philosophy. And it comes back to what Mitch said. Sometimes you're going to half-ass it, but you're going to half-ass it consistently. And sometimes you're going to get it done exactly the way you want. But I think consistency is the king. Consistency and sustainability for all of these things is so important.
The other thing that often trips me up with some of these habits that people swear by on the internet is it's this idea of optimization. There's something about if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And there's something about for me at least, you know what? My ideal is one thing, but being able to say that it's going to be the most perfect, the best way, here is the way it ought to be done, is also something that will sometimes stop me from actually picking up a habit.
Right.
It's just don't shoot for the ideal, shoot for what you can do. Don't try to optimize everything, just do something.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now let's move on to the ones that didn't work. So, Mitch, tips that didn't work for us. Which one would you like to feature?
So this is one that I would like to eventually talk to Thunder about as a full thing. But the biggest, dark period of my health journey, I think, was when I tried out the if it fits your macros approach to nutrition. And I had some people in my life, some guys in my life in particular, who swore by it, who were sending me onto the Reddit. I was seeing them lose a bunch of weight, where it's this idea that you can eat anything you want, but you have to track it, and you got to do all this math, and you got to make sure that you have this much carbs, this much protein, this much fat, depending on what you're doing and whatever. And I think I ended up doing it with my partner for 3 months, 4 months, and we did lose a little bit of weight. But man, it was not really sustainable. I felt miserable. I was finding myself choking down food. It turned food into a game almost, and not a fun game, a stupid game where I'm trying to oh my God, how am I going to get any more protein in today? I guess I'll drink another protein shake, even though that's processed. That's not the best way to necessarily get all the micronutrients and things that you need. It was exhausting to just think about all that stuff. And I didn't really feel great. And I found myself obsessing about exactly every little thing that was going in or out of my body, because I was trying to get results, and I did see some results, but it wasn't, it was all I was doing. It was all I was thinking about. It was all I was, it took up all of my day. And so it's this kind of if I know that it works for some people, and that is, I hear that, I get that. But for me, no, I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to just do the slow, tried and true methods that we've talked about before on this show. And I'll stick with that.
This is another instance of time and place in my life. At one time and place in my life, that would have worked, and I could have made that work, and I would have had no problem with it. And now I'm to a point where I just can't. So, again, experimentation, knowing where you are at any particular point in your life, that's pretty key. Mm-hmm. John, what didn't work for you?
Oh, I've had a lot of things. Picking one is,
I know, right? I wish I would have went first, because that was my line.
Yeah, man. Sorry, you can edit that out, and then we can put yours in first.
No, that's fine.
I think, I've tried a bunch of different stuff, and just not done well. I've had different diets that have not worked. But I think, the big thing, because I had a couple of them written down, I was trying to debate between which one was probably a bigger fail.
I'll do both of them, because mine's lame. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, these are lame too, but they're just fails. Where the biggest things were diets. To me, the dieting thing never works, because I hate it. I hate being like, well, you can't have that. I'm like, well, why? Like, all of these things aren't necessarily bad. I mean, one scoop of ice cream is not bad, but the 30 that I was going to eat is the problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been the biggest thing. I think it's probably because my attitude towards those things were probably the reason that they failed more than anything else. And I think that's probably my one hang up with a lot of these things is I think a lot of the things that didn't work for me is I didn't have there was no mental buy-in from me. Like when I mentally buy in, it's over. I'm locked in and ready to go. And that's, I think, looking down this list now while I'm like verbalizing it, I think that's been the biggest thing for me is just my mental buy-in. You've got to find something that you actually believe in, not just because all the gym bros are doing it on Instagram and all the Reddit pages are saying it. It's got to be something that you can get on board with and really get in and do. And I think that's been looking at this list of stuff that I wrote down. I mean, that's the stuff is I can look down and say, I didn't buy into any of it. Like it was the things that people are like, oh, you should try carnivore. It's great. I'm like, dude, it was terrible. It was like the worst thing for me. But like I have 3 of my buddies and they did it for like a year and a half. They're like, I never felt better. Stuff like that. And I think like my mental buy-in when I look down, that's the real key for me and I think that's why I failed those things is I didn't buy in.
That my tip that didn't work, I don't know. Again, John, this was really hard, Mitch. So many of them, so many things I've tried didn't work. I think the ones that say that you have to do something exactly this way or that way are likely to fail for me. I think I keep coming back to this theme that we're all a little bit different. We're all in different circumstances at different points in our lives. We all can give. Like there are times where there could be all sorts of treats and junk food in this house and I could ignore all of it. And then there are times where I can't in my life. So I think anytime anybody says, oh, you got to do this or you should do this or you have to do this, I think that's where I usually end up with tips that don't work. I do have to just kind of generically whine that I feel like at this point in my life, losing this little bit of extra body fat that I want to lose, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't work. Whether it's intuitive eating, whether it's fasting until noon, but then I have to be honest with myself and I'm like, well, what did you do over the past 2 months of the holidays? And you ate a lot of ice cream and pie and desserts and stuff, right?
Sure.
So maybe you're not eating till noon, but you're having a couple of dishes of ice cream at night. So I don't know. I really struggled with that things that didn't work because I felt like everything doesn't work. So for me, I think there's more value in just kind of focusing on the positive, what is working. So I'm going to go back to my strength training. That's working. So
good.
That's a lame answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's a good answer.
I wish I had a more specific answer. I think the specific answers are more interesting.
Yeah, but I think to be honest, the specific answers, looking at like, we're very similar, it sounds like, on like we didn't have the right attitude to buy in because you said at a different time in your life, it might have worked.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I think some of the things that I failed at, it would have been the same thing. Like if I would have had buy-in or if I would have, had that been the right time in my life, those may have been good things. And that's, I think the point of this is sometimes taking 2 steps back and reevaluating your current situation and going, okay, what's working, what's not, what can I change? What can we do to make this work better in my life? Because there are times and seasons of things, I mean, maybe you had a new puppy when you were trying to do this thing and you really like your sleep was really altered. So it was difficult to do. Or, you had, you were in your last semester or you were writing your thesis for whatever. And like these things don't work at that time, but now that you have a little bit more time in your life, they may work better. And so, looking back or looking at opportunities that might fit now, I think that's a great tip.
Yeah. I think the other thing that doesn't work is when you try to change too much at once. And we've talked about that numerous times. Yeah. I think any tip that involves you being fundamentally somebody that you were not the day before is probably destined for failure.
Right.
I mean, there are exceptions to that, but anyway.
Something that I've learned a lot in this podcast is this idea that a lot of the kind of framing that I think guys are given either on social media, fitness magazines, et cetera, is that you need to be strong-willed. Like if this program doesn't work for you, it is somehow your fault, right? Like you did not have the like willpower. You really didn't want to do this, whatever. And it's kind of hard sometimes not to internalize that. But I really appreciate hearing from both of you guys this idea that like, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that was too much for right now. Or maybe it didn't fit you, your likes, your needs, your wants. Maybe it was too big of a change. Like, those are all different kind of ways of thinking than just saying, hey, I failed at this. It's no, this thing did not work for me and is not working for me now.
Yeah. And comes back to just analyzing it and seeing why. And maybe it comes back to my one, like, it didn't work because I didn't know my why. Why do I care about losing an extra 10 pounds of body fat? Maybe I didn't know my how. Maybe I didn't execute on that properly. Maybe I didn't come up with a way to make it sustainable. Maybe it's something I really don't want right now. Maybe it's just something I say I want. How often do we say we want things, but really in the whole hierarchy of the things we want, it's really kind of low when it comes down to it. And we've got other priorities at that particular time. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Hopefully that helped. Hopefully the conversation around it helped more. With this podcast, I think that is oftentimes where the value is. It's not that we give out these tips or these quick little fixes or these hacks. I mean, I wish that was the world we lived in. I wish we could wave our magic wand and give you those things, but I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. And I think within the conversation, we all can discover the ways that it's going to work for us and maybe the ways that it's not going to work for us, or the small tweak we can make to make it work. Thanks for listening. If you have any health tips that didn't work for you, or something that worked for you, or any reflection on the conversation, or you have other health questions, you can always reach out to us. hello@thescoperadio.com. hello@thescoperadio.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks for caring about men's health.